Hey, this is Kyle Crawford from Strong Dads. Strong Dads podcast would love to thank the Crimers Beer House for coming alongside of us. The Crimers Beer House was started in 1982 by the Crimer family, and since that time, they have definitely become a Cincinnati favorite. So if you're looking for an incredible meal in an incredible setting, definitely go down to Route 128 and check out the Crimers Beer House.
Welcome to Strong Dads. Hey, this is Merle Hutchinson and coming to you with a guest other than my man, Kyle. You know, I had to get rid of Kyle again. He's like carrying a heavy load on your shoulders all day long. I can't carry that boy around every day. Kyle, I'm just trash talking. Yeah, I'm having fun. I know you're out there doing your thing. You got to work today, but we have replaced you with a special guest today. Our guest today is Matt Wilbur. He is the co-founder of the Fitness Rebellion. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, and just thanks so much for having me on, Merrill. I really appreciate it. Love what you guys do, and just excited to chat today, man.
Yeah, good stuff. So part of our connection, well, again, this was a LinkedIn connection, I think, right? So the power of the social networking, seeing people that kind of do what we do. And I always look at this, you know, you're working with dads. We work with dads. You're not my competition. All right. My competition is the rest of the world that's tearing dads apart or making dads less than they need to be. And so I really want to do everything we can to just pump up guys like you and other people that do what we do, because we have got to get dads in a winning mentality. Otherwise, we all suffer. So I just thank you for doing what you're doing and joining us. But we're going to learn a little bit more about you and the Fitness Rebellion. Okay.
Yeah, let's dive in.
Good.
So, I mean, do you want me to kick off or?
Well, I got to pay a few bills, and then once I do that, then we're going to get all of the background on you. Okay.
Let's get you paid.
Yes, that's right. Okay. We Strong Dads wants to thank the Crimers Beer House for coming alongside of Strong Dads and sponsoring what we do. Crimers Beer House is an awesome place. By the way, Matt, if you're ever in the Cincinnati area, you've got to go to Crimers Beer House. It is a man's place. It is really
talking about it.
Yeah, it is really cool. So just great food, great surrounding, great atmosphere. So you got to get to Crimers Beer House, located on 128 in Cleves, Ohio. Also like to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions. Casey's does landscape work in the tri-state area of Cincinnati, Southeast Indiana, and Northern Kentucky, and his work is absolutely amazing. Casey is a heck of a guy. So for any of your landscape needs, contact Casey's Outdoor Solutions. All right. So with that being said, Matt, give me some background. Let our listeners know out there, who are you?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question to answer. And
that's a loaded one.
You know, Merrill, I'm a hardworking guy that really gives a crap about helping dads get where they want to be and helping people live their best lives. Me personally, I was never the athlete growing up, was really into music, struggled with a lot with my confidence, like to the point where if people were laughing in a room, I just immediately assumed they were laughing about me, which is just roll that around. It's a pretty messed up place to think about yourself that way. And so that's what got me into fitness. I grew up, you know, seeing the Frank Zane, the Schwarzeneggers, all that stuff. And there was just something about like that powerful look that they had to them. And so I got into training, absolutely got hooked, loved it, was obsessed, would read books every single night. When I was in college, like everybody was getting up at like 10, 11, they were partying, all that kind of stuff. I was getting up at 7, getting to breakfast, getting to the gym, doing all my studies. And it's just been something that really transformed me and how I felt about myself and how I showed up in my life. And it was really a vehicle that allowed me to apply discipline to other areas. And it's just been such a massive impact, like to the point where I didn't feel like I really felt fit in anywhere, so to speak, before I had this anchor in my life. And now it's just opened up so many things for me. I want to give that to as many dads as possible. And I know a lot of guys, they struggle with balancing time. They struggle with their confidence. They struggle with their energy and showing up for their wives and kids the way they should. And like, I think you can attest to this too, but if your energy isn't where it needs to be, if you don't feel good about yourself, you're not showing up as the dad that you should be.
Yeah. And in any other realm, whether it's at the business place or other relationships, you're just, You're always kind of just running halfway there. I have a thought or question, like the idea that, you just didn't have that confidence. It wasn't in you. You thought other people were, if they were laughing, they were laughing at you. Where do you think that came from? That, I'm going to call it, that heightened insecurity of wondering if you were enough.
Yeah, I think it really stems from a little bit of like my relationship with my dad, which I love. Very very, very hard, very like discipline oriented, which I think is a good thing. Don't get me wrong, but I think I was always like, everything I did was never good enough, so to speak. Whether that's the case or not, that's how I had always felt.
Right.
And I think that carried over into just me as a person. And it was really like, I hadn't found my identity in who I was as a man yet, so to speak. And I think fitness, it helped me get on the path to find that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's such a vital point. I think what I do is I coach marriage and family environments, all the time. That's the environment I work in. And primarily a big part of my work are with dads. And it is, I don't care with the man that walks in. I mean, I've been doing this now for over 30 years. The man that walks in always carries a level of insecurity. And I liked what you said, whether it's real or not, in terms of the perception, that doesn't matter. And so a lot of times what we see is the persona that's put out is really the mask that's covering some insecurity within. And I see this so especially, like, I think one of the things that motivated me, and I think we're going to talk about this a little bit today, was the weight room. Okay. Seeing guys just getting, muscle and bulk and slamming weights and going in and just really bringing out the monster inside of them in a good way. Right. Yeah. And then looking at their life and seeing kind of the train wreck of life around them, where they're broken marriages, can't really stay into a job. And I'm like, okay, something's not lining up here. This guy looks like he's got it all together. And, I came to realize that the gym was a little bit of the mask. It was a little bit of the mask. It was that first place that, man, this is a place that I excel. This is a place, maybe because I'm naturally or genetically gifted enough to have that muscle or that ability. And I started to hide behind that kind of thing. And I'm not saying that's wrong, because I think we all have to have an avenue to see what at least strength feels like, right? If I could just feel like this in all parts of my world. But the gym is the easiest place for me to do.
I agree.
Sometimes it comes at the expense of other things. And so I think it's really cool that you point that out. But it's really what motivated me. In our work here at Rock Solid Families, we have a gym, but it's kind of our secondary. Our primary is, let me get into the dad's head and go, okay, dude, what are we covering up here? What do we need to do? Dad's and purpose of dad and husband is more primary. The fitness side is just, like you said before, it gives us the energy to do what we need to do and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah. So let's get back then to your work a little bit. So where are you with that? Like, are you looked at as the main fitness guy, or how does your work look with these guys that come in?
Yeah. So it's really changed a bit, honestly, in probably like the past 6 months, where you'd mentioned, some guys using fitness as a mask. And to be completely straight, I feel like I did that to a degree for a while, because it was the one place that I understood, I felt confident, I could own. And that really led me, I think we talked about this off camera, like September of last year, I was working all the time. My daughter's 14 months. So she's still very young. I was completely out of balance with the time and wasn't as present as I needed to be. And I kind of finally hit a point where there is a realization that there's a lot more layers going on here, right? Like you had mentioned. there's the fitness side of things. There's being a good husband and father side of things. There's the career side of things. And then there's a spirituality side of things. There's these four core areas. And mine was very much like slanted to one because it's what I do for work. And I just realized how broken, honestly, my life was. I was not being the husband and father that I know I could be, whether that's to other people's standards. Other people probably would have thought I was being great. It wasn't acceptable for me. So all that to say, we've really shifted where we use it as a vehicle and an anchor, where this should not take over somebody's entire life. But it's one of those easiest things, like you said, it's like that first thing that you can grab a hold of. If everything else is chaotic, if you feel like your life is a mess, if you're struggling, you can very tangibly grab hold of like getting exercise and fueling yourself better and start to feel positive changes and then leverage that into using in other areas of life. And we've had a number of clients. There's one in particular that stands out. I won't mention his name just in case he doesn't want to, but he came to us in a very broken spot. We're a single dad. His fitness was all out of check. His finances were all out of check. His relationships, everything. And by the time he wrapped up with us 8 months, like he is not the same person that he started with. But like from a fitness perspective, relationship with his sons, like his sons are working out with him. He's spending more time with them. He has more energy to do more things with them. He's got a better relationship with his ex. He's got a better relationship with his current girlfriend. And that's the stuff where like when he did his recap with us, he cried on camera, and I'm like, that's what we're about. Like we're not the company to just get you 6-pack abs. Like I want to change dads' lives, and that's what we are stand for. And there's a lot that goes into it. It's not just fitness. We work a lot on the mindset aspect and the scheduling and the structure and routine, because this is not just, we can't just pull the fitness thread and everything gets in check. There's a lot of other things that we got to do, but we use it as the first line, so to speak.
Man, that's excellent stuff, really. And you're exactly right. I mean, I think we use the fitness thing first because it's familiar. It's what we're good at, but man, it can grow way beyond that when you start to see how it can impact other parts of somebody's life. That's really cool that you share that, because that's the stuff that we get a kick out of too. It's like, at the end of the day, I always kind of look at too, especially like it or not, we're all going to age. Right. And so the 6-pack abs or whatever it is, eventually I work with guys across the spectrum, and it's like, I have guys come in, I just want to be able to go for a walk with my grandkids, and so the desired outcome starts to change over time just based off of where we are. And so, but the idea that I always say, isn't it cool that your grandson wants to go for a walk with you? That's more important than whether you had your 6-pack abs,
Yeah. And that ability to go and have that walk and do it enjoyably so you can move better. So, and that's where I think that, like you said, that's where things really tie together. Yeah. It's balance of these aspects.
Very cool. So let's talk a little bit about, I'm a little bit further down the road than you with balance, and we're still balancing. Okay. Like I have kids 30 years old and 13 years old. So I have a spectrum there of kiddos. And so I've watched sort of my balance change. I remember when they were young and in diapers thinking, am I ever going to get to sleep? Am I ever going to be able to feel like I've got my act together? And then they start to do things on their own, and you start to feel like, oh, I've got a little bit of time. I can do some different things. So how do you go about the balance of fitness, of being a father, of being a husband? How do you approach that?
So I run my days a lot, structured and routine based. We had kind of mentioned before, like I'm a 3:50 a.m. guy, because that's just what my life dictates. Like my wife and daughter typically are up at 7 or 7 a.m. A couple of days out of the week, 3 days out of the week, my wife gets up at 6 a.m. so that she can train. I'll then just, I'll do a little bit of work while our daughter sleeps. So it really boils down to like my schedule is super regimented. Like I block everything in. And then on top of that, I make it adaptable where I'm always hunting down friction in my day as far as like, okay, this is not moving as good as it should, or like, hey, like I couldn't, I wasn't as present here as I wanted to be. So what's causing that? Where do I need to adjust my schedule? And that's what really works well for me, is just I do it on like sometimes it's a daily basis. Like I always have this script running in my head, and I got that from the gym. Like, how did I do for that workout? So I do that with my life. Like, how did it, like that hour that I was with my wife and daughter, was I completely present? Like, could I have done better here? I do that with my schedule, and I do that on a weekly and a quarterly basis so that things change, right? Especially as dads, like that's one of the most common things that we see is like the schedule's always changing, commitments, kids sports, all the stuff is going on. And I don't have as much of that, but with the business and just family commitments, we do have a lot of things that are going on. So I just have to constantly be looking and seeing what I can adapt and move things around so that I'm staying on point. And it's a little check mark at the end of every single day. Did I do something to love, honor, and appreciate my wife? Did I do something to love, honor, and appreciate my daughter? And then I have other check boxes for like the fitness and business side of things as well. So that's how I look at it. Without a calendar and without that process, I would be a mess. And I was a mess, I feel like, September of last year.
Right. So I really like the idea of the structure component. So one of the things that I work on when I work with couples is if they're in a very destructive way of living, that didn't just happen overnight. Okay, it was bad habits that just continued to grow and to fester, and then they come into me. And I have to do kind of exactly what you just talked about. I have to get them very regimented. Like we have to put what I call mechanical processes in. They don't feel natural. So you have to sit down at the table at 7 p.m. every night. And this is what you talk about. This is what you have to do. And it feels sometimes artificial or forced or phony, not pleasant a lot of times because I wasn't in the mood, those kinds of things. And the idea there is that we're trying to create a new lifestyle. So it's a weird sort of feeling right now because I'm not used to it. But in that practice of we're going to meet, I'm just saying 7 p.m., but whatever, we're going to meet at 7 p.m. after dinner. Kids are, out of the sight, and we're going to have this discussion time. And ultimately in that time, we're going to learn to work better. We're going to learn to communicate better. We're going to do things that we haven't been doing well for the last 15 or 20 years that put us in the place we are right now. What happens is, providing we stay with the practice, it becomes natural. It's not forced. So I want to ask you, because you're coming through very regimented, and I get it. That's what we have to do to get the practice. But like now when you're with your wife or when you're with your daughter, I'm sure it's not on your mind like, okay, like I got to do one more thing, I can check my box, because that's not very natural.
Yeah, exactly. And
right?
But that's what I had to do in the beginning.
Exactly.
To be like, okay, am I showing up? So yeah, it's much more natural now, where it's kind of like at the end of the day, I just kind of think to myself, okay, like, how did I do today? Because I still want to like do a little self-assessment so that I can look to be better the following day. But yeah, it's gotten much more natural, where I honestly, I felt embarrassed when I had to go in September of last year and block out like family time and these blocks throughout my day. It was like, I felt like terrible as a father and as a husband. Like I have to go and I have to actually block time for my family. But that's what I had to do to start to create the balance in my life. And I think anybody that's listening, you shouldn't feel bad about those things if it's going to make you better.
Yeah. Yeah. And like we're trying to create a new healthy habit. And at first you have to do it in a very regimented way to teach you and to give you the opportunity. Because if you don't put it on your calendar, chances are you won't even do it. Right. That's good stuff. So I like that idea of just reminding guys, hey, if it doesn't feel natural right now, you've got to regiment it. There are guys that are super fit and strong, and they're very lackadaisical about their approach in the gym. Well, that's because that was their gift. I have a son who just drives me crazy. He can lay on the couch for 6 months and get off the couch and he can go run an Ironman triathlon. I'm like, dude, I don't like you right now.
Oh, isn't that so infuriating? I was never that guy.
That was not me either. And he thinks it's so funny. And I'm like, I don't like you. I don't want to talk to you right now. But then there's other guys that, and this would be more me. I've got to train like a wild man if I even think I'm going to sign my name on the paper for that triathlon. So again, it's not really about what everybody else is doing. It's what you have to do to make it work for you.
And I like something that you pointed out back there where you'd mentioned, at 7 p.m., whether you're in the mood or not, you sit down. And I think that's an important thing to just touch on real quick, where just honoring the commitments we make to ourselves and we make to each other, and really relying on that discipline more than how we feel at times, right? Because there's plenty of times at the end of the day as dads, like, I'm beat, I'm tired, and like, you just have to override that. It's not like that's part of what we have to do, is like, you have to just not operate on your feelings and operate on who you should be. So I just wanted to circle back to that real
That's
quick.
great. So tell me a little bit about like what it means like to be a role model is how you see it. Okay.
So for me, one of the biggest things when it becomes being a role model is leading by example. Not this do as I say. You should educate, and you should lead by example. And you should be transparent in your struggles. And I think that creates deeper connection. Since I've been more open and honest about like the stuff that I'm struggling with, and like the stress and anxieties around business and all the things that we're doing with my wife, like our relationship and our communication has gotten so much better. So I think it's really just, for me, the biggest thing is leading by example and being honest about the situation. It's simple at the end of the day, but I feel like we often mess it up.
Well, Matt, you say something there that it is simple, but it doesn't come across very easily, because honesty means you're going to be vulnerable. You're going to be transparent. You're going to allow your flaws to show. That doesn't mean you allow them to perpetuate and grow, but you allow them to show enough that you have to address them. And so that goes back to the whole idea of, why was I wearing a mask in the first place? Why did I have to hide behind the weights in the gym, or behind the bottle of booze at the bar, or behind the size of my wallet? Why do I have to hide behind all of these masks? Why can't I just be honest and vulnerable? And when you do, the term that we use all the time is, are you really coachable? Do you say you're coachable, or are you really coachable? Because if you're really coachable, you don't know the answers, and that takes humility, and humility is not something of our culture these days, is it? No. I'm number one. I'm the greatest. I'm the best.
And I think to that point, the confidence thing we talked about earlier, that's why that's still in my head. I'm someone who's very able to realize my weaknesses and my shortcomings, and now at a better position to communicate them. But yeah, I see a lot of guys wearing that mask of lies, where they're lying to themselves, they're lying to their spouses, they're lying to their kids, and it's perpetuated. And it's I know you have a lot of these conversations as well. Like, some of the guys, when I do consultations, are like, wow, I've never told anyone this stuff before, because when I talk to somebody, I don't want to just know what you're doing for nutrition and what you're doing for exercise. I want to know what's going on in your world. Why is this important? Why are we actually on the phone? What's really going on? Because you don't want to just get in shape for the sake of getting in shape. And if I talk to somebody that they don't open up, and I'm like, okay, like you said, they're not coachable, I can't help you.
Right. And that's good to point out. Right. That's good to point out, because that might be the very first piece of humble pie that they actually received that might make them think about, maybe I need to look at something differently. So
Agreed.
Good stuff. Okay. So let's get into a little bit of the fitness side of things. And because I have to confess, like, I'm all about fitness, but I have never been good with nutrition. Let me be honest with you. I know all about nutrition. Okay. I know all about it, but it is probably my biggest weakness when it comes to just taking, I have probably trashed so many good hours of gym time by what came into my mouth after gym time. All right. So how do you work that balance? What are some of your go-tos that our strong dads out there can listen to? Like, if you could just cut this out, or if you could just do that, you're talking to a guy who struggles with nutrition.
Yeah. So I'd say one of the biggest things, and just to provide a little context, so I came from a competitive bodybuilding background where very extremely regimented. Like, if you look at a lot of people that do that, it's very, very strict routine, and kind of progressed over the years. And what we really teach at the Fitness Rebellion, and what we preach, is flexibility, where we have high level parameters, and we have some flexibility, because I think one of the biggest issues when it comes to getting in shape, losing body fat these days is a lot of stuff out there that's just like, hey, you can't have this, you can't do that. And that's not really realistic, right? If I'm talking to a dad and he likes to have, a couple of pieces of pizza every Friday night with his kids, like that's ridiculous for me to say, no, you can't do that anymore. Instead, I would rather say, okay, you want to do that. Here's what we need to do. Here's how we can balance things out and move things around. So it's really creating more flexibility throughout our day and understanding more of like intuitive eating, which is like, okay, all right, like I should probably have protein at every single meal. If I have a heavy meal, I should probably pull back on carbs and fats for another meal. And that's how we look at it. And we talked about mechanical approaches. In the beginning, a lot of the times we'll have people track food. And so they can see, oh, okay, that's how it will impact my day. So that they can get to a point where they have the knowledge and the comfortability to have balance there. Because when we talk about utilizing nutrition, obviously we want to eat whole nutrient dense foods. We're going to feel the best. We're going to run the best. But we like to say 80-20, 80% of the good stuff, 20% of the fun stuff, so to speak. And that's what we kind of teach our clients and run by. And then that just really creates the flexibility where it's not a diet, it's a lifestyle, and it's something that can keep going. And yeah, you're going to have bad days. You might travel, or you might have something that came up and you have a craving or whatnot. That's not the issue. It's adapting and, how do we handle that situation better in the future, and how, like, if it's going to happen, like what should we do, the following day or the rest of the day to make sure that we still stay on track.
Yeah. That makes so much more sense to me. Just becoming more educated and aware. Like, oh yeah, I kind of trashed a little bit last night at dinner, so I'm going to alter things a little bit today. And I think over my time, that's more of what I've done. Like, I'm very conscious now when I kind of went to the trashy route, like the next day or so, I'm like, no, I don't need to go there anymore. I'm good. Which has helped a lot.
And I think it takes a while to get there for some people. I mean, the common trend I see, and maybe this happened to you in the past, is like, they'll have that, like, I don't like to say bad meal, because it's more like typically like a calorie dense meal. They have a more calorie dense meal, and then it turns into the day, and then it turns into the week, and then it turns into the month. And I think to your point there, it's just like, hey, you know what? You're human. These things happen, but just because you had a meal that was very heavy doesn't mean that the rest of the day has to be bad, or the rest of the week or whatnot. It's like, okay, just dial it back in, and having that room to move things around can really course correct some of those aspects.
I have to be very aware of, I have what I call trigger foods. And trigger foods are just that. They will trigger me in to a bad habit or a continuation of them. And in particular, for me, it's sweets, carbs, but not like salty carbs. Like, I can look at a bag of chips for 3 months. I won't even, but the sweet stuff, that kind of deal. My wife always, teases me. She can't lay treats around the house, like in a little candy bowl or something, because I'm eating the bowl like instant. I eat one and I'm in trouble. So the best way for me on that stuff is, and my wife and I go round and round, don't even buy that stuff. Don't even bring that stuff in the house, because that's my trigger. And I'm kind of, I will confess that I've never had a problem with a drug addiction, but I kind of at least understand how somebody could do one M&M and it could turn into a 5-pound bag, like, oh my gosh, how did I just do that?
It's funny that you say that. Like, just this week, the other night, my wife made chocolate chip cookies, and for me, that's one of those things where
it's over.
However, I think one thing that can be helpful too is with that stuff that are like triggers is either one, like assigning a day, like one day out of the week where you're going to allow yourself to have some of that stuff. And that way it's kind of like, it opens the door and it closes it in like in a realistic fashion, rather than having it be around all the time. And the other thing too is finding better ways to make that where it's less calorie dense and still tastes good. And that's one of the things like we like to teach guys. Like, some people are pizza guys, some people are burger guys, and it's like, well, there's a very big difference in the amount of calories that you can get from a burger when you make it at home versus when you get it out at a restaurant, right?
Right.
So some of that stuff as well, I think, can be very, very helpful. But I'm glad you mentioned triggers, because that's something that people think like fitness guys, like you don't have, like, you're just, you don't like food. And like, I love food. I love all of it. And it is something that we got to kind of balance out and figure out, when can we fit those things in, what's realistic. And so
yeah, it's good stuff, man. And those guys that come in my place, we just go round and around talking about it. We all have our little triggers, and it's just part of what we learn to manage and become aware of. So Matt, let's talk a little bit, if we could. I have a question for you about, why do you do what you do? I know what you do, like in the immediate moment. You're paying your bills, you're running a business, you got to put food on your table. Okay. But what about the generational, the long term? You and I could make money a lot of other different ways. And I don't know about you, but I'm not getting rich at this. But we love what we're doing. So why are you in it? And what's the long-term goal here?
Yeah. So I'll try and answer as directly as I can. So for whatever reason, ever since I was a young kid, I wanted to do something of purpose and have a serious impact on the world. I had mentioned earlier, like the gym and fitness and exercise is one area that I felt like I really owned and I could help people in. And it's one of those places that I can connect with someone. I can help someone immediately. And once I can start to see changes in their body, I can help them with some of the other stuff too. But for me, as simple as it is, it's about changing lives. Like, I know what fitness and nutrition has done for me. And I would not be here obviously today if it weren't for it. I would not be the same person. I know that for a fact. And I think when we talk about generational, right, there's a huge issue in our country. Like, one, just from like dads and how they show up, and two, from a health perspective. And as dads, it is our responsibility to set the tone for our kids and the generations that come. And I see that not a lot of people talk about the generational aspect of being a dad, or being you got it. You know what I mean? Of getting your health and fitness in check. And like, it's something that's like, it's gotten worse and worse. And we talked about this before on both sides. And like, we have a responsibility, and I take it on as a responsibility to lead that sector for what we do, because I want my daughter is going to be kind. She's going to be strong. She's going to be driven. She's going to be tough, and she will pass that on to her kids if she has them down the line. And when we have our second one, like, that stuff is really important for me. I think as a dad, it's not necessarily giving your kids the things that you didn't have. While that's good, it's teaching them the things that you didn't know, so that they can have a better life and they can be more successful and do the things that they want to do.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So yeah, I mean, so really it's the idea of, and I think I've always come down to this too, in my simple way of thinking things. I've always liked sport, and in particular fitness, because it's measurable. The scoreboard doesn't lie. It's a value teacher. It's sports and fitness are one of the few things that really purely teach values. You got to follow the rules. You've got to show up to practice. You've got to do those things when you don't want to. You've got to play with integrity, all of these different things. And it's, anybody that I've ever talked to in athletics and came through their high school years, they remember all their athletics. They seldom ever remember anything about sitting in an English class or singing. And not to diminish education, but so much education actually about life actually takes place through the fitness and the sport world, because it's so pure. Like, the scoreboard doesn't lie. The referee called you out, you misbehaved, whatever. And it's just such a great teaching tool to teach values. And so, I mean, that's why we are big on it here at our place. And I know just from what you just talked about, what you want for your daughter. Well, what you just said about your daughter are the things that we use this fitness and sport thing to help teach. And it's a better teacher often than we are. Just let the sport play out, don't interfere. So,
and I think to that point, I think a lot of people like try to teach through lectures, right? And I don't know about you, but I've never been someone that learns through lectures. I learn through doing and failing. And like you said, that's sports, that's fitness, that's nutrition. That's an immediate way to learn and get feedback. Oh, okay. All right. Somebody checked me. I got to do better.
Yeah. Yeah. My second oldest son used to get so mad at me because this is the one that could sit on the couch and just jump up and do a triathlon. And, because he had some justification for some of what he'd do. Cause I'd be like, son, you need to do this. You need to work out. I'd always say, listen, I'm not going to measure you by what you say. I'm going to measure you by the fruit of your labor. Like, well, what do you actually produce? And we kind of joke about that now because he's not a young guy anymore. I mean, he's a dad himself, but now he's one of those guys who could produce some fruit with little work in certain areas, like in the fitness world. Like he could then have to work out and go do the triathlon. But the idea here that, we measure our quality of life by the fruit that we produce. And you can say all day long what you should do, but at the end of the day, if you're not doing it, then it reveals how you're actually living your life, And so it's so important that our kids learn, you got to do. You can't just talk. You got to do. The lecture, I'll give you a little bit of lecture, but then it needs to be done.
Yeah. And that's a good, and that goes back to our point about like, what does it mean to be a role model? And it's that doing, that leadership. And I think that's in a lot of areas that's lost. And it's really sad to see. And I know you guys are doing a lot on your side and we're trying to do a lot on our side to really, like put guys in that leadership role. I mean, I talk to some guys and it's just like, it's sad because they're like another kid for their wife to deal with. And that's not how it should be.
No. Yeah. And the wife needs to hold him to a standard of, I need you to be more. And the man needs to step up and go, I desire to be more, and so that really is an active process of growth. So Matt, this is great stuff. So is there anything, we're going to close things down here as we wind things down. What are some takeaways that the guys at the Fitness Rebellion and stuff that we can point to your direction that you like to teach that you want to leave people with?
Yeah. So, it's really, the center of our conversation, but really using like, if you know that your life is chaotic, if you know that things aren't where they need to be, or you're not showing up as a husband and father that you need to be, and it's because your energy, because your body, or because of anxiety, like the easiest thing that you can grab a hold onto, like tangible, like we said, doesn't lie, is fitness. And then use that as an anchor to then in turn implement some of the other structures in your life. And for that's kind of where we really start. We run a completely free group. There's like 2,600 members or so in it, where we have trainings and all kinds of stuff. And we got team members helping people out. And, so obviously some of those people become clients as well. But when we talk about impact, that's why we run that group. We know some people will come on to the business side of things and become a client, but that's going to impact more people is put some of the stuff out there, like what you're doing with the podcast. And so if people need help, that's a great place to start.
Yeah. So get us connected. How do we get into your stuff? How can I connect with you? How can somebody, if they're interested in looking you guys up, how do they get there?
Yep. So you guys can check us out at thefitnessrebellion.com. We've got a couple of tabs on there for free resources and all that kind of stuff. And then we're on all the social media stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you can find us pretty much everywhere. But yeah, checking out our website. If you check out our website, we'll pretty much follow you with advertising. So
yeah. Thank you. Yeah. So what percentage of your coaching work is done online versus like in an actual gym?
Yeah, so we do 100% of our coaching model online, and that's how we founded in 2017. And we've just grown and refined it where I think a lot of the coaching programs out there in the fitness world, it's kind of like, hey, here's this program, good luck, see you later. That's not how we operate. We're very involved. There's a lot of communication. There's a lot of like group meetings and group Zoom coaching calls. And we really place a heavy emphasis on the community and the connection aspect of things, because, if you're taking on anything, this well, like it's not enough typically to just have a plan and a structure, especially if you're that far out of touch. You need some accountability. You need a brotherhood. You need people that are going to have your back. And, men sharpen men. Like if you're around other dads and men that are really pushing to be the best, that's going to just, being in that atmosphere, it's going to push you to level up. So we really put a big emphasis on like the coaching side of things, where provide all the structure and all the education and whatnot, but like we want to have connection, we want to have relationships, we want to have these conversations so that things can really sink in, and that only happens through these conversations that we kind of talked about.
Yeah, excellent, man. Great stuff. Okay, so well, hey, we're going to wind things down. Matt, I want to thank you for your time. I thank you for your heart and for your passion. Let's keep pounding on those men out there, right? We need to challenge them to be who they are called to be. We are a faith-based ministry here, and we believe that God designed every man to be the man that he needs to be in his home. He needs to be that leader. He needs to help lead well so his kids don't go astray. We talk about the generational impact. Well, I know firsthand, I don't need stats anymore to tell me that we need a political answer. We need an economic answer. We need a dad answer, and we will watch our country thrive if we get that. We need dads back in the homes. We need dads in the marriages. This has been very passionate for me because I get to work in the wreck every day. I get to see what happens when it goes bad. And for that reason, I don't need to see all the stats. I work in the stats. I get to actually see the wreckage. And so I want to thank you for what you're doing. I love that we bring fitness as kind of the hook of saying, hey, that's the tangible, right? But from the tangible, we can really radiate all those things into other areas like the marriage. So, Matt, we're going to wrap things up. You strong dads. What's that?
I said, thank you so much for having me on, Merrill. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
This has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So for you strong dads out there, or for any of you new listeners, please subscribe to the Strong Dad channel. You could also check out anything that we do at our website at rocksolidfamilies.org, where we do marriage and family coaching. And again, we do a lot of that online as well. So I don't care where you're located, whether you're in Massachusetts or California, reach out to us and we'd like to help in those areas. So again, we want to thank all of you guys. Go out there and be a strong dad.
I'd like to welcome Casey's Outdoor Solutions as a new sponsor to our podcast. Casey's is a premier garden center and gift shop located in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Casey's offers a wide selection of plants, landscaping materials, home and garden decor, and gifts for every occasion. Casey's is committed to providing exceptional service, a unique shopping experience, and value to every customer. Stop in and see what makes Casey's so unique. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana, or call 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home.